I think the biggest change that we're going to see in 23 is the shift between domestic to international travel. So like you rightly mentioned, by 22, domestic travel effectively recovered to the pre-pandemic peak. But when it comes to international travel, especially North Americans traveling outside the continent to the rest of the world, that has only recovered to 69% of the pre-pandemic peak by the end of 2022.
On this episode of Early Bird, Orestes Fintiklis, Vice Chairman of the Board for Mondee. Orestes joins the podcast today to talk about travel technology stocks, including a look at the big trends driving the travel tech industry in 2023. If you're an investor looking to stay on top of the latest market trends, then you're listening to the right podcast. This is Early Bird, and I'm your host, Stephen Lerner. Before we get to today's discussion, let me tell you where you can save time and beat the market through Early Bird, a free daily email newsletter featuring commentary about the latest trends in stocks, cryptocurrency, and equity crowdfunding. Early Bird is designed to help individual and non-professional investors stay on top of all of the critical investing trends. The newsletter is 100% free and is sent to your email box each weekday morning. Subscribe to Early Bird for free at www.earlybird.email. Once again, that's earlybird.email. And now, today's discussion. All right, Orestes, welcome to the Early Bird podcast. How are we doing today?
Great. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be talking about your company, Mondee, and the broader travel tech industry, especially what it means for investors who are looking at these types of companies and wondering what they should do. But before we do that, Orestes, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. If you could, in 30 seconds or less, what should the audience know about you and your background?
Currently, I'm the vice chairman of the board of Mondee. I also help the company with business development and mergers and acquisitions. Precisely because I have a background in private equity, I founded and ran Ithaca Capital, which is a private equity fund exclusively focusing on travel and hospitality. So in that regard, I have a lot of experience in investing, acquiring, selling companies in the sector. Prior to that, I was an executive in private equity for many years, for almost 15 years. And before that, I was an attorney with a law firm called Clifford Chance in London. I am originally from Cyprus, which is a small island close to Greece. And I studied law originally in Oxford University in England, where I graduated first in my class. I enjoy travel. All of my life, I have invested in different aspects of the industry, all the way from hotel properties to travel companies. And personally, also, I'm a keen traveler, both for work and leisure. So
good. A lot of travel background there. That sounds great. Mondee is a travel company. For those listeners who may not be too familiar with it, the company went public in late 2021 via SPAC, I believe. Orestes, real quick, what should the audience know about Mondee? What should they know about the company and how it went public and how things have been going for the company?
Yes, so Mondee is a travel technology company in a $3 billion travel marketplace. It's very different from the marketplaces that the consumer is aware, usually the Expedias or the Bookings of this world, that typically sell full-priced flights and hotels directly to the consumer in a B2C strategy using very basic technology, mostly 90s driven, and also in direct competition to the airlines and the websites of the hotels, the direct channels. Mondee is a very different type of marketplace. We sell discounted flights and hotels. We sell not directly to the consumer, but in a B2B2C strategy, effectively through travel experts, new era travel intermediaries, what we call gig economy workers, social media influencers, and membership organizations. We do so through cutting edge modern technology with a lot of service attached to it. And we do it collaboratively with airlines and the hotels because our sales channels are not competing directly with the sales channels of the suppliers who are the airlines and the hotels.
Oh, sounds like
we went public, like you mentioned, in July 22, and we've been on NASDAQ since then, almost 10 months now.
Fantastic. I think that's wonderful. I guess sort of let's talk a little about the broader travel tech industry. You know, how would you describe travel technology right now in the spring of 2023? And where does your company sort of fit in that travel tech environment?
Yes, so the travel industry is one that has a lot of tech debt, right? I mean, the last major disruption that happened in our industry was in the 90s with the advent of the internet. And that's when Expedia Booking, all these online travel agents came into the picture, right? They started leveraging on the internet to sell to the boomers and the Gen X generation. I believe now there are a number of travel technologies companies out there. There is innovation, but still there is a long way to go. The current traveler profile has changed. Now we have the millennials and the Gen Z are leading travel. They're consuming more than 50% of travel. These consumer cohorts, for them, the internet is no longer an innovation. It's to them is utilities, like the old telephone line. So these new consumer cohorts, they are looking for online or mobile platforms, conversational commerce. They are looking for curation of their content. They are looking for social media driven. And we believe that very few travel companies, if any out there, are positioned to take advantage and to serve these new consumer cohorts. And Mondee is one of them. We are basically selling not only through traditional travel experts and intermediaries, but recently started selling through social media influencers, membership, club organizations, etc. We feel we have not only a unique technology, but a very unique distribution, and of course, access to the discounted content that comes from our history of acquiring major wholesalers in the space in the last 12 years or so.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot to unpack there. It's interesting how your company is trying to sort of position itself for that younger cohort, that younger audience, especially with some of the partnerships that have been set up through social media and other influencers. For those who don't know, travel technology, and I used to write about this just a few years ago. Basically, there's only a handful of companies that control most of the travel booking websites online. So you have to really do something to sort of stand out. You mentioned real quick some of the acquisitions that you made. I think your company recently had an acquisition just a few months ago, right?
Yes. We acquired a company in Brazil, which is the market leader in the segment of the market where we are the market leader in North America. We acquired the company in order to expand our geographic footprint. So a natural expansion from North America is Latin America, and the biggest market there is Brazil. The company focuses a lot on hotel bookings. We sell a big part of our business as air. So diversifying into more and more hotel content is part of our strategy. And then, of course, there are great cross-selling and revenue synergies there. We are selling to this company, Orinter, that we bought, has 5,000 travel experts. We're selling our content to these 5,000 travel experts, and they're selling their content to our 50,000 or so experts at the time. And of course, we did the acquisition very accretively. We trade at 14, 15 times EBITDA on the stock market. That company, we acquired it at 4 times 2022 EBITDA. So very accretive acquisition as well. Half of it in cash, half of it in shares at $10 or so, validating our stock price. So an acquisition that we are very happy about, and a strategy that we're confident we'll be able to replicate a number of times in the near future.
Well, that's great. I think it's wonderful how the company's been able to grow that way. It's certainly an interesting way to grow, but it's what you kind of have to do in this space, especially with there being a lot of consolidation in travel technology. I want to take a sort of a broader approach real quick. You said the generational issue is certainly a big issue in travel technology, and it sounds like from your perspective you are expecting a bit of a changing of the guard in online travel. Right now you have some of the larger players, let's call them Booking Holdings, Expedia, TripAdvisor, Trip.com, these large players in online travel. You're saying that there's going to be a changing of the guard, maybe because of a generational change in the consumers. Does that sound about right?
There are a number of reasons why we believe there are, kind of changes about to happen in the short, small to medium term. The first one is that the players that you mentioned, they are basically competing for the direct to consumer segment of the market, where the airlines and the hotels, they would rather sell directly on their own website, right? I mean, if you think about it, the bookings or the Expedias of this world, they sell the exact same way that AmericanAirlines.com or Delta.com or Marriott.com are selling. They have a website which is indiscriminately targeting the entire world in a kind of broadcasting manner, which creates a lot of channel conflict there with the original suppliers, which are the airlines and the hotels, trying to restrict the market share of these players. Another dynamic that you mentioned is the generational change, where the millennial is no longer making choices on travel based on what they see on the internet. They're driven more by social media. They are driven more by the desire to curate and make bespoke, specific itineraries, not just by a generic, off-the-shelf solution offered by one of these major online travel agent companies. And then, of course, the most important point is the technology. I mean, the players that you mentioned, their technology is, for the most part, 90s internet-based technology, which is not where the world is moving in every other respect. So travel is an area that was left behind. And these dynamics that I'm mentioning, they are well known to the industry investors. That is why if you look at the EBITDA valuation multiples of these major companies, they are not, promising a future growth. They are more, kind of reflecting an incumbent who has been losing and is about to lose much more market share from the new entrants going forward.
Good point. When we return, we'll hear from Orestes about travel demand in 2023 and the industry impact of generative AI. But first, let me tell you how you can become a more informed investor through Early Bird, a free daily email newsletter. Early Bird has commentary on the latest events and trends in stocks, cryptocurrency, and crowdfunding. With Early Bird's daily weekday email, investors can quickly stay on top of the trends and beat the market. Subscribe to Early Bird for free at www.earlybird.email. Once again, that's earlybird.email. And now, back to today's discussion. So, Orestes, we're talking today about your company, Mondee, and the larger travel tech companies in the industry, especially as it relates to stock investors. I want to take a step back right now and just kind of focus on some of the broader economic challenges. Obviously the pandemic was a pretty bad moment for the travel sector. Travel basically fell off a cliff, but since then it has recovered in a very strong way. I keep hearing about revenge travel, and I keep hearing about more people getting back out to traveling, and there's a lot of money being spent there. But do you think we've basically reached peak, quote unquote, revenge travel so far, or do you still see demand for travel growing in 2023?
I think the biggest change that we're going to see in 23 is the shift between domestic to international travel. So like you rightly mentioned, by 22, domestic travel effectively recovered to the pre-pandemic peak. But when it comes to international travel, especially North Americans traveling outside the continent to the rest of the world, that has only recovered to 69% of the pre-pandemic peak by the end of 2022. So one of the trends that we're seeing in the industry, like you say, is saturation in the domestic market, but there is still a lot of upside to come from international. By way of example, markets like China were effectively closed until the end of 22, parts of Eastern Europe. And that is another reason why Mondee is such an interesting opportunity, because 80% of our business is international leisure travel, which is a segment of the market that is nowhere close to the pre-pandemic peak. And despite that, our 22 net revenues have exceeded by 70% the 19 levels. So it just gives you a sense of the opportunity here with this shift from domestic to international travel.
Oh, wow. So you're seeing a big growth in terms of domestic to international. I was wondering, what do you think about sort of the impact of higher inflation and higher interest rates? Do you think that could force some of that travel demand to decrease?
So again, I'm going to draw this distinction between international and domestic, right? So what the higher fuel prices and the higher interest rates and inflation are causing is a strengthening to the US dollar, right? Which makes effectively foreign jurisdictions much more attractive. So in the first year after COVID, your typical North American took the opportunity to travel within the US or very close by, some parts of Caribbean, some parts of Mexico. Now, in 23 and going forward, we are seeing more and more North Americans venturing outside, driven partly also by this price inflation that is more prevalent in the US and the strength of the US dollar that is making offshore jurisdictions much more attractive. Another dynamic there that we're seeing with the softening of the market in certain parts of the world is that consumers and then traveler now, having had the experience of COVID, they are looking at as travel, leisure travel, more as a necessity than as a luxury before, right? So even with the softening of the economy, they will continue to travel. But what we are seeing is the consumer trying to find more cost-efficient ways to travel. Right after the pandemic, people would travel at whatever cost. I just need to get out. That was kind of the message. Now, what we are seeing is people saying, okay, I need to travel. I need to see the rest of the world. The pandemic was a paradigm shift. It has expanded my desire to continue traveling for the rest of my life, but I'm going to look for more cost-efficient ways to travel. And this is precisely where companies like Mondee come into the picture, because like I said, unlike the big online travel agents, what we do is we sell discounted content. So again, another dynamic that is fueling the growth of our company, which is very much in line with the current travel trends.
Yeah, being a discount provider of discount travel, I think certainly is advantageous right now. Orestes, since the company did go public last year, the stock price has basically remained flat, essentially. Well, why do you think there hasn't been any growth in the stock price?
Look, the way to look at it is that every single technology company, if you take the last year, especially in the small cap segment of the market, is trading at 30, 40, 50% below the IPO price. And if you take actually the companies, the travel tech companies, especially that went public through a SPAC, they are trading 70, 80, 90% below the price they went public. So the fact that Mondee, despite the adjustment to the valuation of technology companies, and this especially on the small caps, so the fact that we're trading at the same price, it's actually a huge overperformance relative to the peers and the overall tech market in general.
Got it. But Orestes, some of the, especially big tech companies, they've had a great 2023 so far. And even in the travel space, companies like Airbnb and Booking have performed very well so far this year in 2023. Why has Mondee not been able to catch up so far?
I mean, I think Mondee is a combination of the fact that it's a new entrant to the market. It's a story that is very appealing once people understand it. We're not only growing much faster than these players that you mentioned, the major travel companies, but we are also profitable already. But as with every company that is joining the public markets, and we've been a public company for about 8 months, it takes time for the investor community, especially the retail investor community, to understand the company. And this is a process. We are already working on it. We have 5 equity research analysts covering the stock. But in my opinion, Mondee is one of the hidden gems out there, which combines exponential growth, which a strong profitability, which, by the way, is very difficult to find. You can either find a company that is growing very fast and is losing money, or a company that is growing very slowly and is making money. It's very difficult to find a company that is both growing fast and is making money. And I believe Mondee is one of these best kept secrets, especially because our strategy is B2B2C. So our brand is not visible to the consumer, right? So it will take some more time for the retail investor to discover Mondee, but I believe once they do and they appreciate the strengths of the company, there is a lot of upside to come in our stock, especially with near-term developments such as the inclusion of the company into the Russell, which is kind of by virtue of our market cap and float. Just doing the math and doing some back of the envelope analysis is kind of a foregone conclusion. So there are a lot of drivers out there, and there is a lot of upside in the company in the short term and medium term.
Well, thank you, Orestes, for making the case to our audience of investors about why they should invest in Mondee. Real quick, my last major question, I want to know industry-wide, there's been a lot of hype this year so far about generative artificial intelligence or generative AI and its impact in various industries. What impact do you think generative AI will have in travel technology?
We think it's going to have a transformational impact. None of the travel technology companies have focused in embracing AI full-fledged. I mean, some of them are embracing it in call centers or service centers, or other minor aspects of the business out there. Companies, the major travel companies, in the same way that they have internet-based 90s technology, it's very unlikely they will embrace that anytime soon. I mean, they haven't even moved to the social media or mobile, etc. So AI to them, it's kind of miles in their innovation curve. And most, we anticipate that a big part of that will come from fast growth travel tech companies like Mondee, and more on that, to follow shortly.
Fantastic. Orestes, thank you so much for coming on the Early Bird podcast to discuss your company Mondee and the larger travel tech industry for investors. Before we wrap up the show, I just have one final question for you, and it's the most important question for today's discussion. That question for you, Orestes, is if a genie could grant you one wish, what would you wish for?
On a personal level or on a professional level?
It's up to you.
I would say to give me the opportunity to continue traveling, to continue working with people that I enjoy, to have inspiration within Mondee and all the ventures that that I'm involved, because at the end of the day, what matters is enjoying the journey of life, and travel is part of it, and at the same time work with people that inspire you and basically help advance your character, your personality, your skills at any level.
Thank you again to Orestes Fintiklis for sharing your insights on travel tech stocks. And thank you to everyone for listening to today's discussion. We'll be back next week for another episode of Early Bird. Have a great day.